Hi there and welcome to Ludiflex. In this video we are going to create this awesome login and register system using PHP in order to connect it with MySQL database, and we will use AJAX in order to be able to show the error messages without loading the page. So here is a quick demo. Let's start with registering the new user. But firstly, let me show you some error handling. Let's use invalid email. You can see the error on the top. And then when we have everything correct, you can see registered successfully, and after you'll be directed to the login page. And another thing, when you try to use the same email while registering, it will give you that error. Now let's go on login. You can see other error handling. Now after logging with the registered email and password, you can see we go to the home page. Then when you click on logout, the session will be destroyed and we go to the login page. Now let's get started, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe. So the first thing that you are going to do, it is to download the front-end codes, because I have already created it in the part 1 video. If you want to watch it, you can check the link in the description. So from here on Ludiflex website, go to that link, and here it is the video that I've been talking about. So go down and find the download button, so click on it. So after downloading it, extract the zip file so that we can open it in VS Code. So here from our VS Code, we can see we have index.html, the style.css and the script. So let's open it in the browser and see if it is working. Okay, so here you can see we have our front-end code. Now let's continue. Well, as you know, PHP is a server-side scripting language, so we will need a server in order to run it. So in this tutorial, I'm going to use XAMPP. If you don't have any server installed, I recommend that you can use this one. So me, I have it. Let's go and start Apache and MySQL. Okay, now after starting the server, let's go back in the browser and write localhost, then click on phpMyAdmin. So here it is where we can access our databases. So now we are going to create a new database and name it login_register. And so here we are going to create the table which will be named users, where we will store everything that comes from the form. So we use SQL, create table users, and we will add the columns. We will have ID, which is a primary key, and we will have auto increment so that the number will increment automatically. And then we have the name, email and the password. Okay, everything is okay. Now let's click on go. Okay, now you can see we have our table and all the attributes are there. And now let's go back in the Visual Studio Code. But the first thing that we are going to do, we are going to first remove these codes into the server directory. So copy the downloaded file and go to XAMPP, then htdocs, and then you will paste it here. So we will access now our codes like they are hosted on a server. So firstly, let's open it in VS Code again. Okay, now let's close the first one. So the first thing that we're going to do, let's change the index.html into .php. And let's also create the PHP folder where we will save some other PHP files. So now, but the first thing that we're going to do, let's add the name attribute on each input field so that we can have the unique identifier for each input field, so that we can get the values from the input field to the database. Okay, after doing it on the login form, let's do the same on the register form. Also add some name attributes. Okay, now after adding all the names attributes, let's go in our PHP folder and create config.php, which will include the connection to the database. So we open PHP and we are going to use variables to set the values for each element. The first one is the host name, which is localhost, a username and password, and the database. By default, the username is root, password is nothing, and make sure that you use the same name of the database as the one that you have created. So next we are going to create the connection using MySQL Connect. The first one is the host name, then username, the password, and after it is the database. So we are going to check if the connection is valid. So here we start. If the connection is not correct, we will display the error using MySQL Connect error function, and else when the connection is successful, we display this message. Now let's test it in the browser and see if it works. So go to the name of our directory, which is login register. So you can see we have our form. Now let's go to PHP folder, then config.php. You can see we have a successful connection. So let's change the name, which we don't have. You can see we get the error. So let's put everything back to normal, and let's remove this because we don't want anything to be displayed on our config.php, because we are going to include it in other files. Okay, you can see we have nothing. Okay, next, under our PHP folder, we are going to create register.php, where we will write the codes to insert the user in the database. So we first will include our configuration, which is config.php. Then we add the variable name, which will store the user inputs. We'll use the post variable. First, let's go and add the method in our form. we'll set the action to post. I mean method, not action. It is method post. Yeah, go ahead and also add it on the login form. So this will allow us to get the input from the form and send it into database through PHP. So rename everything to make sure that we have every name attribute. As you can see, these ones we have 3. So the next thing, we are going to create the variable which will store the encrypted password. We use MD5 so that someone who has access to the database can't see the password of each user. Okay, now let's create an if function which will check if the name and the email and password that they are not empty. So if it is empty, we use else and print out using echo the message that all fields must not be empty. So let's create another if which will filter the email. We'll use filter var function, and our validation check, we use filter validate email to see if the user input it is in an email format. We'll also add the else where we will print that the email is not valid. So if the condition is true, here we will verify that the email is not already in the database, so that we cannot have 2 or more same email. So this means that we will ensure that we have unique email for each user. So we'll use this SQL statement to select all from the user where the email is equal to the email that the user has sent. So if the verify email variable is greater than 0, so which means that there is another email already in the database, we'll print the message that the email is already used. So, and we'll add the else statement where we will insert the user into the database because that email is not used. So we're going to use the insert query. Write insert title table users on the columns name, email, and the password, as we have done it in the database. So you can see we skipped ID because it is auto increment. So the values will be the variable for the name that the user used, and also the email. And for the password, remember we are going to use the encrypted password, so you can copy it and paste it there. So that's it for our query. Now we are going to check if the query has been done successfully, and if it has been done, we will print this message. If for some reasons it did not work, we'll also print this message. Okay, so now let's go to our index.php, and on our action let's point it to register.php in order to test it. Let's go back to the form, then to the register. Now let's test if it is working. Now you can see we have a success message, which means that in the database, if we really refresh, we can see the user. Okay, so let's use the email which is not correct. You can see we have the error, and also if we try to use the email that we have already been used, we can also see the error. So our registration is working. Now let's go to our PHP folder and add login.php. So here we are going to use some of the code from register. Let's copy it, and also remember to add the configuration file. Now let's also get the encrypted password. Again, let's see, we can also use these codes. Let's also copy them. We'll change some few lines. Okay, so let's remove everything from this if statement, and let's see everything. Right now everything is good. Let's also, in the first if statement, let's remove the name. We can only we only want the email and password. So now let's start checking if the user is in the database. So we'll select or from the users where the email is equal to the email that the user provided in the form, and the password. So we will use and in order to make sure that we have all these fields, the email and the password are correct as we have them in the database. So remember, we use the encrypted password. So here we'll also check if the number of rows that we have retrieved from the query check user is greater than 0, which means that we have data from our database table. So we set the row to the array, the associative array which contains the user data. So we'll use the session variables because they are the global variables, and we'll set them to hold the values from the database. Here we use the row name and the email, and make sure that you use the same as the same attributes as you have used in the database. So if we did not get any row from the query, it will mean that the username or email, the email or the password is not correct. So remember to add the session start so that you can be able to use these session variables. So let's also change the action and test it. So use the same as we have used. We have the test. So let's see. We have an error. Sorry, I think on the login.php we forgot to change. Yeah, we forgot to change those name that we had on the name attributes. You can see we have the login success, which means our login is also working well. So in our JavaScript folder, we are going to add the authentication.js, which we will use to get the message or the error messages to the user without going to another page. So let's start with the these variables. So you can see we are using the same variables from the script.js, but we are changing the names. I just don't want to make things complicated for you or to confuse you, because we are still going to connect this to the index.php, so which means that there will be two JavaScript files. So I think this is this way. So that's where we want to display our message. So let's go in our HTML and add the place which will contain the message. So let's see if we have it. You can see we have. So let's first restyle it using CSS, then we add the JavaScript later. Okay, after bringing this styles, let's see how it looks. Okay, that's good. Now let's add another class which will be used with JavaScript to show it and to hide it whenever we want to show the message. So you can see if we don't have the show class, the message will be hidden, and then if we have it, we will show the message. So let's continue there, and also remember to add it in our auth.js. Okay, so this allow function will help us to prevent the form from submitting in the traditional way, which is reloading the page. So this will allow us to write the custom form handling. So we are going to add the another event listener when the button login is clicked. Okay, so we are going to create the XML HTTP request object, which will help us to send the data without reloading the page. And this open method will specify that the HTTP request is post, and we specify the PHP for handling the login, and we'll specify that we want it to be asynchronous by setting it true. So remove the action because we no longer need it there. And now we are going to add another function when the server sends the response. So if the ready state is done, it means that the request is complete, and when the status is 200, it means that the request is successful. So we'll create the variable data, which will store the response, and if the data is equal to that message, login success, we will redirect the user to home.php, and if not, we will display the error message. First we add the show class, and the text content for the error, it will be the data. Also, we add the set timeout so that the error message will be hidden after 3 seconds. So now let's add the form data object, which will help us to send the data from the form to the server using AJAX. So now let's put in our script tag, let's import the auth.js and let's test it out. Now you can see we are getting the error on our form. Everything is working. Now let's go back and we are going to copy here everything, and we are going to add code for the sign up form. So we are changing that, and also the handling. Also remember to change the message. So here when the data is success, what we are going to do, we don't want to go to another page, we just want to show the success message and then go to the login. So here in our timeout, we are going to add the login function from the script.js, which will allow us to go to the login form. And remember to change also our form data object and test. Now you can see we have everything working. So you can see every error is now showing on our login, on our form. And let's register the new user, and after some time you get redirected to the login form. So this is done. Now what we're going to do is to create the home page, which is home.php. So what we are going to do, we are going to copy some code from our index. So the first ones are those codes to import the style sheet and the icons. And now we are going to also to copy some codes for the form, so that we don't have to write a lot of CSS. So in our new division, which is welcome, that's where we are going to be putting the email and the name of the user who has logged in. So using PHP and our global variable session, which will be containing the name and the email, that's where we are going to put them. Now let's also add the button, which will use it for logging out. Let's change some few things. Okay, now after doing that, I have noticed something on the icon that we used on sign up button. It's not correct. Let's go back to box icons, search for user plus. Yes, this is the correct button that we should be using. Okay, now you can see, now it's good. So let's go back to our home page, and what you're going to do, let's check it out. Yeah, because we did not add our session already, that's why it is not working. Now let's comment it for now in order to style it, then we will uncomment it later. We are going to use some dummy content in order to visualize how it will be looking. Now let's add some other styling in order to make it look good. And well, after doing it, let's check. Now you can see. So another thing that we're going to do, we're going to change the height. Yeah, now you can see this is good. So another thing I forgot, in order to use the session variables, we must start the session. So we do it on the top, and we also add the if condition. When the session is not set, the session email, which means that we don't have the session, we will direct the user to first login, so using header location index.php, so which means that we prevent the user from accessing the home page without logging in. So now I think everything should be working. Let's load. There is a typo error. Let's change it, add in. Now let's try. Okay, you can see we have our email and password. Now let's remove our dummy content. Okay, now we have the email of the user, of the logged in user, and his name. So now we're going to create the logout.php, which will allow us to destroy the session. So first we start the session, then we unset it, then we destroy it, and then after we will redirect the user to the login page. So let's add some other JavaScript codes in order to make sure that the logout button works. So let's get the ID for our login button. So when our login button is clicked, we redirect the user to the logout.php. Now let's test it. Okay, you can see it is working, and if we try to access the home page, we are automatically redirected to the login page. So now everything is working. Let's add another user and check if everything is working as expected. Well, if you have watched the video this far, I really thank you for supporting me, and please leave a like and subscribe and stay tuned for other good content.